The first time Mia heard the scratching inside her apartment walls, she told herself it was just rats. The maintenance man, a heavy-set guy named Don with nicotine-stained fingers, had laughed when she mentioned it. "These old buildings," he said, lighting a cigarette right there in her kitchen. "Built in the 20s. You hear all kinds of shit." But when the scratching turned to knocking, 3 quick raps, then 2 slow ones, repeating every night at exactly 3:17 a.m., Mia started recording it on her phone. The audio files always glitched during playback, dissolving into static at the worst parts. Then came the whispers, not from the walls, from the pipes. A wet, gurgling voice bubbling up through her bathroom sink. "Mia, we see you sleeping." The super refused to give details about who lived in 4B before her. "Just some guy," he muttered, avoiding her eyes, "left in a hurry." Mia found the truth in a newspaper archive at the library. Local man vanishes from apartment, March 2020. The article described how neighbors reported screaming from Unit 4B for 3 consecutive nights. When police broke down the door, they found the bathtub filled with black water. Every mirror shattered from the inside. A single word scratched into the hardwood floor: hungry. No body, no signs of struggle, just a half-eaten sandwich on the counter, still fresh. The librarian snatched the microfilm away when Mia gasped at the photo of the apartment's bathroom. The sink drain was clogged with what looked like human hair and teeth. Old Mrs. Ruiz from 4C cornered Mia in the laundry room. Her hands smelled like mothballs and incense. "You hear them too, don't you?" she whispered, clutching Mia's wrist. "The hollow ones." Mia's skin prickled. "What are you talking about?" Mrs. Ruiz's eyes darted to the ceiling, where something heavy dragged across the floor above them. There was no 5th floor. "The building eats people," the old woman said. "It's always hungry, and the super, he feeds it." A washing machine suddenly slammed on by itself, churning empty. Through the porthole window, Mia saw dark shapes swirling in the water. Mrs. Ruiz crossed herself. The last tenant figured it out. That's why they took him. That night, Mia lay awake listening to a new sound, something licking the inside of her bedroom wall. Dawn's office was unlocked when Mia slipped in at dawn. The filing cabinet yielded a folder labeled 4B containing a work order for unclogging drain, dated the day before the tenant vanished, a receipt for 50 pounds of raw meat from a butcher shop, a handwritten note, "Fed it double last night, still screaming, we'll try live bait next." Behind these, Mia found a faded blueprint of the building. Where the basement should have been, someone had drawn a vast, gaping mouth with pipe-like tendrils snaking up through the walls. The super's voice made her jump. "Those ain't for tenants." Don stood in the doorway, gripping a rusted pipe wrench. His eyes were bloodshot. "You think you're the first to get curious?" He stepped closer, reeking of bourbon and sweat. "That old bitch Ruiz been here since the 70s. She knows the rules." Mia backed toward the exit. "What rules?" Don smiled, showing yellow teeth. "Feed it or be fed." The elevator didn't go below the 1st floor, but Mia found the stairwell door marked B, locked with a heavy chain. Through the grimy window, she could make out piles of animal bones, dark stains on the concrete, a large drain at the center of the room. Something moved down there in the shadows. Not rats. Something bigger. Her phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. "You weren't supposed to see that." When she looked back through the window, Don was standing on the other side, his face pressed against the glass, eyes wide and unblinking. The chain rattled as the door began to open. Mia barely made it back to her apartment before she heard the heavy footsteps following her down the hall. She double-locked the door and shoved a chair under the knob. From the bathroom came the sound of running water. The sink faucet was on full blast, the water already turning dark. The mirror fogged over, then cleared to reveal writing, "Your turn to feed." The bedroom wall bulged inward, as if something enormous was pressing against it from the other side. Plaster cracked. Mia's phone lit up with another text. "Meat won't work anymore. It wants something fresher." Outside her door, the elevator dinged. Mia stands frozen as the locks turn by themselves. The bathroom water is now black and bubbling. The bedroom wall pulses like a living thing. From the hallway comes Don's voice, but it's not quite Don anymore. It's deeper, wetter, layered with other voices. "Open the door, Mia. We're so hungry. Let us in." The sink gargles something that sounds like her name. The door handle rattles, the walls breathe. The landlord's office smelled of mildew and stale cigar smoke. Dust motes swirled in the slanted afternoon light as Mia flipped through the crumbling property records. The building's history was a patchwork of half-truths and missing pages, but one name kept appearing: Luther Voss, architect, 1923. The original blueprints showed something impossible. The basement on the plans was 3 times larger than the actual building's footprint. Neatly inked notations in the margins read, "Secondary containment system required for subject. Feeding chutes to be installed in walls. Observation room must remain sealed." Beneath these, in shaky handwriting, "God help us, it's growing." Mia nearly dropped the brittle pages when she found the photograph tucked between them, a black and white image of construction workers standing before the unfinished building. Their faces were blurred, as if they'd moved during the exposure. All except one man in a dark suit standing perfectly still near the foundation. His eyes were 2 black smudges. The back of the photo read, "Voss and team, July 1923. Subject secured in sublevel. May God forgive us." Old Mr. Henderson at the Historical Society recognized Luther Voss's name immediately. His hands trembled as he pulled a yellowed newspaper from the archives. Local architect commits suicide, October 1923. The article described how Voss had thrown himself into the building's elevator shaft just days after completion. His final journal entry was quoted, "The containment has failed. It whispers through the pipes now. The others won't admit it, but we all hear the children singing in the walls. I must silence it before." The rest was redacted. Mr. Henderson leaned close, his breath sour with age. They found Voss's body, but his face, the coroner said it looked like something had. He mimed claws scooping outward. Mia's stomach turned. What was he keeping in the basement? The old man's eyes darted to the ceiling. Something that shouldn't exist. Something they dug up during excavation. A pipe groaned in the walls, releasing a trickle of black water onto the floor between them. The city planning office had one remaining file from 1923, a permit for geological survey at the construction site. The attached report contained disturbing notes. Artifact recovered at 30 feet depth resembles fossilized bone structure, but shows signs of recent cellular activity. Recommend immediate containment. A hand-drawn sketch depicted a twisted, root-like mass with too many joints. The caption read, "Subject responds to blood stimulus. Growth rate alarming." The final page was a memo from the health department. All workers involved in excavation have reported auditory hallucinations. 3 have vanished. The remaining men refused to enter the site after dark, claiming the dirt is breathing. Mia's fingers left damp prints on the paper. She hadn't been sweating. The file ended with a single sentence. "Mr. Voss has assumed personal responsibility for the specimen." The chain on the basement door was old, the metal brittle with rust. Mia's third kick snapped it. The air that rushed out smelled like open graves and wet stone. Her flashlight revealed walls streaked with thick vein-like growths, a massive drain at the center, clogged with hair and bones, pipes that pulsed slightly as if something moved through them. Then she saw the door. Hidden behind a collapsed shelf was another entrance, smaller, older, with a heavy steel wheel like a submarine hatch. The words "observation" were barely visible beneath layers of grime. The wheel turned with a shriek of metal. Inside, the tiny room contained a rotted chair facing a wall of thick glass, now cracked, a ledger labeled "feeding schedule," a microphone on a rusted stand. The glass looked into a vast, dark space beyond. Mia's light couldn't reach the bottom. Something scraped against the other side of the glass. Then a whisper came through the ancient microphone. "Mia, you're just in time for dinner." It was Don's voice, but Don was dead. She'd seen his body in the elevator shaft that morning. The ledger's pages crackled as Mia turned them. Each entry followed the same format. Date, June 14, 1924, subject, vagrant, male, amount 180 pounds result, quiet for 7 days. The records continued through decades, the handwriting changing, but the gruesome details remaining consistent. The most recent entry froze her blood. Date, last night, subject, Superintendent Don, amount, 210 pounds. Notes, not enough. It wants the girl in 4B. The glass behind her creaked. A long, jagged crack split the surface. Black liquid oozed through. Mia ran, but the basement door slammed shut on its own. The pipes overhead groaned like living things. From the observation room came a wet, tearing sound, then footsteps. Squelching, heavy, getting closer, her phone lit up with a text from an unknown number. It always knows when you learn its secrets. The lights went out. In the darkness, something that used to be Dawn whispered, "Time to meet the architect." The air in the basement was thick with the scent of damp earth and something far worse, a cloying, metallic tang that clung to the back of Mia's throat. Her flashlight beam trembled as it swept across the cracked concrete floor, illuminating strange grooves worn into the surface. Not random cracks. Patterns. Like something heavy had been dragged repeatedly along the same paths over decades. The maintenance door to the building's inner workings stood slightly ajar, the padlock hanging broken from its hasp. From within came a sound that stopped Mia's breath, a wet, rhythmic pulsing, like a giant heart beating deep within the walls. The door creaked open another inch on its own, revealing darkness so complete it seemed to swallow the light. Mia's phone buzzed violently in her pocket. The screen showed a text from an unknown number. "You shouldn't be down here." When she looked up, the door was wide open. The darkness beyond seemed to ripple slightly, as if stirred by something moving just out of sight. A new smell wafted out, coppery and sweet, like freshly turned soil after a rain. From somewhere in the blackness came a sound that wasn't possible. The distinct squeak of a maintenance cart's wheels. Don's cart. But Don was dead. Mia had seen his body herself, stuffed into the elevator shaft like discarded trash, his face frozen in a scream, his eyes scooped out cleanly. The squeaking grew closer, then stopped. Silence. Then a whisper from right in front of her face, close enough to feel warm, damp breath. "Mia?" It was Don's voice. But it was wrong. There was something else layered beneath it, something older. The flashlight flickered and died. In the absolute blackness, Mia felt something brush against her cheek, cold and rough like tree bark, yet pulsing with warmth beneath the surface. It trailed down to her throat, then tightened slightly. The whisper came again, this time from all around her, vibrating through the pipes overhead. "We've been waiting for you." A loud bang echoed from upstairs, the sound of her apartment door slamming shut, trapping her in. The darkness began to move. Shapes formed in the black, pale, elongated figures with too many joints, their movements jerky and unnatural. They reached for her with fingers that stretched and lengthened like taffy. Mia's phone lit up again with a final message. "Welcome home." The last thing she saw before the darkness took her was the basement wall cracking open like a grinning mouth, revealing row upon row of yellowed human teeth embedded in the concrete. Then the screaming started. Not her own. The screams were coming from inside the walls, and they sounded delighted. The walls pulsed around Mia like living flesh, the plaster sweating a thick, dark fluid that smelled of rotting leaves and wet earth. Her fingers left deep grooves in the softening drywall as she stumbled backward, the flashlight's dying beam revealing impossible details, faces pressing outward from the wallpaper, their mouths moving in silent screams. The basement stairs collapsed inward with a wet crunch, dissolving into a yawning blackness that exhaled warm, rancid air. From the depths came a sound like 100 children whispering secrets, their voices blending into a single hissing stream. "She sees us now. She knows. We can taste her fear like sugar on our tongues." Mia's back hit something warm and yielding. She turned to find the maintenance cart, Don's cart. Its metal surface rusted through in perfect handprint-shaped patches. In the cart lay a pile of fresh meat, still dripping, arranged in careful rows like cuts at a butcher shop. Except these were no animal parts. The tattoo on one piece of flesh matched Don's Marine Corps ink. The whispering intensified as the walls pressed closer, the faces becoming more defined. Mia recognized Mrs. Ruiz's features forming in the swirling plaster, her mouth stretching impossibly wide to reveal pipework instead of teeth. "You should have taken the knife, Misha," the wall Ruiz crooned. "Now you'll join the chorus." The floor beneath Mia's feet began to undulate, the wood planks softening into something fibrous and alive. Tendrils burst upward, wrapping around her ankles with terrifying gentleness. They pulsed in time with the building's newfound heartbeat, a deep, resonant thumping that vibrated up through Mia's bones. From the darkness at the bottom of the collapsed stairs, something began to climb. First came the hands, dozens of them, grasping at the splintered wood with fingers that fused together, then separated at will. Then the faces, bobbing like buoys on a sea of black flesh, their features melting and reforming with each pulse of the walls. Mia's phone, still clutched in her shaking hand, displayed a new message. The building remembers every tenant. Soon you'll remember too. The last thing Mia saw before the darkness took her was the creature's true form rising from the pit, a towering mass of pipes and flesh and stolen memories, its surface studded with blinking human eyes that all turned to gaze at her in unison. Then the singing began, a beautiful, terrible choir of every voice that had ever disappeared behind these walls. And Mia found her mouth opening to join them. The air in the basement grew thick and heavy, pressing against Mia's skin like a damp towel. The walls had stopped their pulsing, frozen in twisted formations that resembled screaming faces. A deep silence fell, the kind of silence that comes before a storm breaks. Mia's breath came in ragged gasps as she stared at the monstrous shape before her. It wasn't just one creature, but many. A shifting mass of human parts fused together with the building's plumbing and wiring. Arms and legs protruded at unnatural angles, their fingers twitching like insect antennae. Faces surfaced briefly in the roiling flesh before being swallowed again by the mass. The smell was worse now, like an open grave after heavy rain. Mia gagged as she recognized the scent of decomposition mixed with something chemical, something that burned the back of her throat. A hand, too long, with too many joints, extended toward her. The fingers uncurled slowly, revealing a single object resting in the palm, her apartment key. The creature's many mouths opened in unison, their voices blending into a horrible harmony. "Come home, Mia." The words vibrated through the floor, up through Mia's bones, settling deep in her chest, where they hummed like a second heartbeat. Somewhere above them, pipes began to rattle. The sound traveled through the building, a metallic symphony growing louder with each passing second. Lights flickered on and off in rapid succession, casting stuttering shadows that seemed to move independently of their sources. Mia reached for the key. As her fingers brushed against the cold metal, the walls came alive again. The screaming faces opened their mouths wide, and from them poured a thick black liquid that moved with purpose across the floor. It circled Mia's feet, lapping at her shoes like a hungry animal. The key burned in her hand, not with heat, but with memory. Suddenly, Mia knew, really knew, what had happened to all the others. She saw their final moments playing behind her eyes like a grotesque film reel. The maintenance men, the missing tenants. Poor Don. They hadn't been eaten. They had been absorbed, made part of something much older, much hungrier. The black liquid reached her ankles now, climbing steadily upward. It didn't feel wet. It felt alive, like 1,000 tiny fingers exploring her skin. The creature leaned closer, its many eyes blinking in unison. "Say yes," it whispered through 100 ruined mouths. "Say yes, and the pain will stop." Mia closed her fingers around the key. The building held its breath. Somewhere far above, an apartment door creaked open. Waiting, always waiting. The key seared into Mia's palm, its metal suddenly white-hot. A scream tore from her throat as the heat spread up her arm in branching waves, like lightning frozen beneath her skin. The black liquid surged higher, wrapping around her thighs in thick, pulsing bands. She could feel them now, all of them. Their memories flooded into her like a dam breaking. A construction worker in 1923, screaming as the concrete swallowed him whole. A young mother in 1956 singing lullabies to something that wasn't her baby. Don's final moments as the elevator shaft yawned open like a waiting mouth. The visions came faster, each death overlapping until Mia couldn't tell where one ended and the next began. The creature leaned closer, its patchwork face rearranging itself into something almost human, almost kind. "Shh," it whispered, stroking her hair with a hand that kept changing, young to old, male to female, smooth to scarred. The first remembering is always the hardest. The black liquid reached her chest now, hardening into something like a second skin. Mia gasped as it seeped into her pores, carrying with it whispers from decades past. The building's memories, its hunger, its loneliness. "You see now, don't you?" The creature's voice had changed, taking on a new timbre that vibrated in Mia's bones. "We weren't invading your home. We were calling you to your real one." The key in Mia's hand melted, flowing up her arm in silver rivulets that merged seamlessly with the darkness. She tried to scream again, but her mouth filled with the thick liquid, its taste strangely sweet, like honey left to ferment. The last thing she saw before her eyes were covered was the creature smiling with all its stolen faces at once. Then the world tilted, and Mia was falling up, through floors and pipes and walls, her body dissolving and reforming, until she burst from a bathroom faucet in her own apartment. She collapsed onto the tile, coughing up black water that slithered back toward the drain like a living thing. The mirror above the sink reflected nothing at first. Then, slowly, a figure appeared. Mia, but not Mia. Her reflection smiled with too many teeth and reached through the glass with hands that shimmered like liquid shadow. "Welcome home," it whispered, pressing a cold finger to Mia's lips. "Now let's meet the neighbors." From every pipe in the building came answering whispers, a chorus of voices both young and old, happy and terrified, all speaking in perfect unison. "Welcome home, Mia. Welcome home." The porcelain tiles felt icy beneath Mia's bare knees as she knelt before the bathroom mirror. The reflection staring back at her was both familiar and deeply wrong, her own features subtly distorted as if viewed through warped glass. The eyes were too dark, the smile too wide. When it blinked, she felt the phantom brush of eyelids against her own. A drop of black water fell from the faucet with a sound like a hammer strike. Then another, and another. The droplets formed a spreading stain across the sink, a dark pool that reflected not the ceiling, but a vast network of pipes stretching endlessly in all directions. Within those twisting metal corridors, shadows moved. Human-shaped, but not human. Not anymore. The mirror Mia pressed her palm against the glass. The surface rippled like water. "Take my hand," the reflection whispered. "I'll show you what we are now." Mia's fingers trembled as she raised her arm. The moment her fingertips touched the glass, the world dissolved into a kaleidoscope of fractured memories. A woman in a 1950s dress humming as she stirred a pot of something that wasn't food. A child's hands pressing against the inside of a medicine cabinet mirror. Dawn's final gut-wrenching scream as the elevator cable snapped. The visions came faster, sharper. Mia saw the building's true skeleton, not wood and plaster, but something organic and pulsing, threaded through with veins of black water. She saw the basement creature's birth centuries ago, when the land was still wild. How it had slept beneath the soil until the excavation disturbed it. How it had learned to hunger. The mirror's surface grew hotter beneath her fingers. Smoke curled from where skin met glass. The pain should have been unbearable, but Mia found she could only watch, detached, as her flesh blackened and fused with the reflection. From the walls around her came a sound like 1,000 nails scratching against wood. The pipes groaned as something vast moved through them. The bathroom light flickered, and in the stuttering darkness, Mia saw them. Figures emerging from the corners where walls met ceiling, their bodies elongating like taffy as they crawled toward her. The mirror. Mia smiled. "They've come to welcome you properly." The first touch was cold, skeletal fingers brushing Mia's shoulder. Then came the whispers, pouring into her ears like water. "We've been waiting. So lonely down in the pipes? You'll taste like sunlight." Mia opened her mouth to scream, but what emerged was laughter, bright and bubbling and utterly inhuman. The sound echoed through the building's bones, shaking windows and rattling dishes in cupboards 3 floors away. In apartment 4C, old Mrs. Ruiz paused mid-prayer. She crossed herself with trembling fingers when she heard the laughter, then reached for the bowl of raw meat she kept hidden in her oven. The building had a new caretaker now, and it was hungry. The laughter died in Mia's throat as her vision swam, the bathroom melting like wax around her. The tiles beneath her knees softened into something organic, pulsing with a slow, steady rhythm. The air grew thick with the scent of wet earth and copper, filling her lungs until every breath tasted like old pennies. Her reflection stepped through the mirror, its form shimmering like heat haze. Cold fingers traced Mia's jawline, leaving trails of black ichor that burned like dry ice. "You're beginning to understand," the not Mia whispered. Its voice had changed, layering with echoes of all the others. Dawn's rasp, Mrs. Ruiz's accent, the high-pitched giggle of a child Mia didn't recognize. "This building isn't wood and plaster, it's flesh and memory, and you." The thing leaned closer, its breath smelling of damp newspaper and spoiled milk. You're becoming part of its nervous system. The walls around them shuddered. Plaster cracked in intricate spiderweb patterns, revealing glimpses of what lay beneath, pulsing red tissue threaded with black veins. The pipes groaned as something massive shifted within them, the sound vibrating through Mia's bones. From the hallway came a wet, dragging noise, then another, and another. Mia didn't need to look to know what approached. The memories weren't hers, not yet, but they would be soon. She could already feel them pressing against her mind like bruises. A maintenance man in 1978, his screams muffled by the insulation swallowing him whole. A teenage girl in 1993, her fingers scrabbling at the bathroom tiles as something pulled her into the drain. Countless others, their faces blurring together in a scream that never ended. The mirror thing smiled, its teeth elongating into needle points. "Listen," it breathed. The dragging sound stopped just outside the bathroom door. The knob turned slowly, squeaking on rusted hinges. Mia's breath hitched as the door creaked open, revealing a darkness so complete it seemed to swallow the flickering light. From within that blackness came a sound that froze her blood, the wet, rhythmic clicking of too many tongues smacking against too many teeth. The mirror thing's grip on her jaw tightened as the first tendril of darkness slid across the threshold. "Welcome to the family," it whispered. Then the darkness rushed forward, and Mia's world dissolved into screams. Some hers, some not, all blending together in perfect harmony. In apartment 4C, Mrs. Ruiz placed the bowl of meat on the floor and bowed her head. The building hummed around her, its pipes singing a lullaby older than the city itself. Outside, a new for rent sign swayed in the evening breeze, its metal creaking like a contented sigh. The cycle continued. The hunger remained, and the building was patient. The darkness swallowed Mia whole, wrapping around her like a second skin. It slithered into her nose, her mouth, her ears, filling her with whispers that weren't sound, but memory. She was standing in the basement again, but not the basement she knew. This was 1923. The air smelled of fresh-cut lumber and sweat. Men in suspenders and dirt-streaked undershirts hauled bricks and mortar, their faces grim in the flickering gaslight. At the center of the room, a hole gaped in the floor, raw earth crumbling at the edges. A man in a tailored suit, Luther Voss, stood at the edge, staring down into the black. His hands trembled around a leather-bound journal. "It spoke to me last night," he whispered to the foreman beside him. "Not in words, in dreams. It showed me things." The foreman spat tobacco into the dirt. "You're paying me to dig, not listen to ghost stories." Voss's eyes were fever bright. "It's not a ghost. It's older, hungrier." A sound rose from the pit, a wet, clicking noise, like bones rattling in a sack. The workers froze. One of them, a boy no older than 16, took a step too close to the edge. The ground moved. A tendril of black shot up, wrapping around his ankle. The boy barely had time to scream before he was yanked into the dark. His shriek echoed back at them, fading, then cutting off with a sound like a melon hitting stone. Voss didn't flinch. He just wrote something in his journal. Subject responds to living stimulus. Growth accelerated. The vision shattered. Mia gasped as she was dragged forward through time. A woman in a 1940s house dress, humming as she poured a bucket of dark liquid down the basement drain. Blood swirled in the water. A maintenance man in 1972 screaming as the pipes reached for him, his wrench clattering uselessly against the tiles. Don, just last week, standing where Mia stood now, his face pale as the walls breathed around him. The darkness tightened its grip. "You see?" The voices surrounded her now, layered, Voss, the woman, Don, all speaking as one. "We've always been here, waiting, growing." The bathroom materialized around her again, but it wasn't her bathroom anymore. The mirror was gone. The sink was gone. In their place, a gaping hole in the wall, its edges lined with teeth. From the darkness within, something shifted. Not a hand, not a face, just hunger, given form. It reached for her. Mia didn't scream. She opened her arms. The next morning, the building was quiet, too quiet. In apartment 4C, Mrs. Ruiz woke to find a bowl of fresh meat on her kitchen table, still glistening, as if just butchered. She didn't question it. She never did. Downstairs, the landlord pinned a notice to the bulletin board. Apartment 4B available immediately. Quiet neighborhood, perfect for single occupant. Somewhere in the walls, something laughed, and the pipe sang along,